So to move us on, a lot of us know of an entity within the CAL FIRE called the Fire and Resource Assessment Program, or FRAP. And FRAP is really important in that it provides, collects, synthesizes data and information that drive CAL FIRE's efforts. And so we're glad to be joined by Jamie Liderson today from the FRAP. Jamie is the supervising environmental scientist who will give us a preview on an upcoming forest and rangelands assessment, which I understand is helpful to understand sort of the health of our landscapes. Over to you, Jamie.
Knowledge that I'm, oh gosh, sorry. I want to knock over my water. Okay, is that better? Okay, great. Glad you can all hear me. So I can have, everyone can hear. I just wanted to give a quick acknowledgement that this is very much a team effort, and I'm very grateful to all of my colleagues at FRAP and within CAL FIRE, and of course our external partners for all of the work that has gone into this effort. Oh wait, am I doing that? Okay, so the FRAP assessment uses data-based indicators to show the current state and recent trends on California's forests and rangelands. This is one of the core functions of FRAP, although we do a lot of other work as well. We release an update of this report about every 7 years. The most recent one was released in 2017, and we are working on an update that should be released in the coming year. Broadly speaking, this report is used to inform leaders and managers of conditions at the statewide level. So that's one of the key benefits of this work, is that it's statewide. Another thing that is really special and noteworthy about the assessment is that it's been around for a long time. We've been doing this since the 1970s. And thinking about the assessment over time, one thing that I think is changing sort of over time is that looking at the language in the legislation that sets the requirement for us to write this report, it notes that demand on forest resources is expected to increase, but forest resources are limited. So the thought process, I think, in the 70s was really the concern was on that a change in that demand and how we could balance that with a static resource base. But thinking about forests and rangelands in 2024, I think the concern is more on declines in that resource base and not necessarily this thought that they're static and only impacted by our own land use and harvest and stuff like that. So with that change, we're talking in the recent assessment, not just about sustainability, but also about ecosystem resilience. I want to just really quickly talk about the indicators that we use and how they were chosen. They're based on the Montreal process, which is an internationally agreed upon set of indicators and criteria that countries can use to track sustainable forest management and conservation. We have refined those using extensive public outreach and web-based surveys. For the most recent assessment, we did interagency and external consultation to make sure we're targeting indicators that are the most relevant for California. We do like to keep many of the same indicators across assessment cycles so that we have consistency in the report over years and a better ability to track those longer term trends. But we also allow authors to propose new indicators for emerging issues as they arise. I'm now going to show a few of the indicators as examples of the types of data and analysis that we present. I don't have time to show all 50, but this one here is average statewide temperature. This isn't an indicator that's unique to the FRAP assessment, but I wanted to show it just to hit on that concept of ecosystem resilience and some of the factors that are contributing to seeing shifts in that. So we found that from 1951 to 2022, there's been a 3-degree Fahrenheit increase in average statewide temperature. Warmer temperatures dry out fuels, and they also can cause stress to vegetation. This is showing area burned just among forests for the purpose of this talk. And it's also showing the severity class of that fire. So the blue shows unchanged, low, or moderate fire severity area burned, and then the orange shows the area burned in high severity. And, you know, what jumps out, of course, is that recent years have had a much greater area burned. And in particular, the high severity has shown a lot of increase in area burn compared to the earlier years in the record. There's still year-to-year variability, but the lower years showing up are actually, you know, the 2016 and 2019, they look low compared to the years around them, but they actually are similar to what a high area burned year looked like in the 80s and 90s. And of course, what jumps out the most is the two most recent years shown here, 2020 and 2021, had a much higher amount of area burned, especially in that high severity class. I also want to make the point here that area burned in forests on its own isn't a bad thing. If you take a historical perspective, our forests are adapted to fire, and we're actually generally having less fire than what they experienced historically and what they need for better forest health and resilience. But where you run into problems is if the fire is either happening at a greater frequency or a greater extent of high severity area than what the vegetation is adapted to. And that leads to concerns about vegetation type conversion and, you know, a need to step in with active reforestation or prevention. This next indicator shows the relative stand density of timberland. So this isn't a trend, this is just a current state indicator. Moving from left to right across those bars, it's showing an increasingly competitive environment for trees, so greater tree competition relative to the productivity of the site, the potential maximum productivity of the site. So as a result of fire exclusion, many forests have increased in density and are in a much more competitive state, which can slow growth and cause tree mortality. Historically, many forests would have been predominantly in the partial competition class, which is the second one shown there, whereas the most recent forest inventory measurements are showing 15% of the timberland in that state, and then over half is in the full competition or imminent mortality zone. So those two bars represent areas that show a need for restoration in terms of density reduction, either through beneficial fire or other means. And then finally, I wanted to end on this last slide, which shows how much of an increase we've had over the years in research on wildfire and forest management in California. So this is a positive note. We've made a lot of investments. People really care about this. People are dedicating their careers to this. And I'm excited to hear the rest of the talks today to cover some of this great work. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Jamie, and to the work of the entire Frap team. We have just a couple minutes for any observations or questions, and I'll just share one, which is I really appreciated you showing the chart on the increased acreage of burning, but then also the differentiation between high severity and lower severity. One of the things that we're working to evolve, as you know, is to differentiate between the severity of burns. Because as you pointed out, wildfire is natural to our ecology. And so that's why we're trying to get more low-level, safe, controlled wildfire onto the landscape. But historically, you know, the proxy for wildfire destruction has been acreage writ large. So I'm really hoping that, you know, the Frap data combined with other data that we have ultimately gives us a metric that allows us in a more sophisticated way to report year to year on wildfire, so that we're really working to minimize that high burning catastrophic wildfire while we're making sure that there's enough so-called good fire across the landscape to really reduce that catastrophic severity or catastrophic wildfire threat.
Yeah.
Any thoughts there?
Yeah, I would also say that the areas that are burning at low severity really represent an opportunity where we can reintroduce more low severity fire. Once the initial fire has come through, those areas are then more resistant to future fire and easier to reintroduce good fire. So that area burn slide is good and bad depending on the effects of the specific fire.
Really helpful. Any other questions or comments from the dais here? Doug.
It'd be interesting to see the money that has supported that research and how that's probably increased, and that's why we have a lot more papers being written.
I'm not sure if we have it specific to research. We do have a figure show. So we have a new chapter in this assessment, which is institutional response, that covers a lot of topics like investments on the issue of wildfire in the state. And it does show like CAL FIRE budget. I'm not sure if it has funding specifically for research. I would say though that my program Frap runs a forest health research grant, which we're really proud of. And we're currently in our 6th solicitation, and we've given out around $29 million for research. So we're very happy to be able to do that. And yeah, it's a great part of our program.
Yeah, and I guess, as we think about where's that money coming from, maybe it's like the voters are approving more and more stuff. But, do we have any, I guess, data in your organization on if we increase, public infrastructure or private infrastructure, how that would relate to solving the problems we have?
Increase infrastructure, you mean in terms of investing in like construction standards or?
Well, rip the Band-Aid off.
I'm not
Sawmills.
sure we have that, but I can take that into consideration.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Biomass plants, those
Oh,
things.
we do have that, actually. We do include biomass plants. We have a chapter on renewable energy and do discuss the contribution of forest residues towards energy production.
Oh, cool.
Yeah,
Good to
yeah.
hear.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And I think we acknowledge one missing piece of the puzzle on our sustained response is getting more economic activity into the forest. That's managed, for ecological benefit of landscape health, but we need to get more activity because as we've talked about so many times on this task force, public funding simply won't be enough to manage the landscapes. So really appreciate all that you're doing and all that you will do here in support of our action plan update. Thanks so much, Jamie.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Yeah.